This is another, I think, key piece of advice I'll give any owner, okay? Nothing is anybody else's fault other than yours. Nothing. It is 100% wholly and solely on you to figure out what's going on. You can't blame your sales manager. You can't blame your admins. You can't blame, it's your responsibility to figure out your problems.
All right, guys, I am here with Corey Combs, the owner of South Shore Construction down in Florida, and really looking forward to digging in today. I wanted to have Corey on because he's got a lot of experience and he's a guy that prioritizes and really intentionally focuses on building processes in his company so that they can improve and grow consistently, so that they can scale and they can maintain that high level of customer service that is their standard. So I'm excited to dive in. I am grateful for Corey for setting aside some of his very valuable time and to share with us, to share some of his insights and experience and expertise. So welcome, Corey. What's going on?
Nothing, just trying to keep our head above water. I mean, as you can imagine, it's pretty busy in Florida right now.
Yeah. So just for the context, because people might be listening to this or watching this, years or months from now, we're on the heels, or you guys are on the heels of Hurricane Ian that hit the southwest coast of Florida just under a week ago. So you guys are based in Tampa. Are you seeing what are you seeing in your area?
Yeah, our area is pretty much repairs. I mean, we've seen some that are, older roofs that are, need to be replaced because they just had, old 3-tap shingles, but most of them is just repairs. And so we're out hustling, doing repairs for folks. Yeah, not too bad. Yeah.
All right. That's even more indicative of how valuable your time is right now. So I'll make sure that we don't abuse that and we get, make this conversation as good as we can. Before we dig into some of that, the business stuff, can you give us a background as to who you are, your company, how long you've been in business and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so South Shore, well, actually the parent company, CBC Homes Inc., was incorporated in 2018. I have I'm a licensed general contractor and a licensed roofing contractor, but my background goes much, much further. I mean, I started in the roofing industry in 93, dropped out of school, was looking for, something to do. And a friend of mine, I was working at a restaurant. And a friend of mine's like, man, we can make a lot more money working for this roofing company. So I went and got a job with them. And back then I was making like $400 a week, which was, it was a lot, no skills, no education, nothing, in 93. And I think I was making $270 at working at that restaurant. So got involved with that, started tearing off as a general laborer and, worked my way up to shingling and, just been in the construction industry ever since, man.
Wow, 30 years, huh? It's you're stuck now, huh?
Yeah. I took a brief pause in 2008 because, construction was pretty much non-existent in Florida. We had the economic crash, the housing crash. I mean, it was pretty bad. And I got a job working with a friend of mine who was a marketing guy, sales and marketing guy. And so we traveled all over the country and we did marketing and sales programs for health clubs. And so he's the one that taught me about selling the basic bare bones of marketing campaigns and, how to handle objections. And we had this sort of mnemonic that we used to teach the sales guys. And we called it the bullets in the gun, how to shoot down objections, right? It was pretty cool, man. So I learned sales and marketing, and I did that for a few years, and then that really helped me in my sales when I got back into construction.
Okay, right on. That makes a lot of sense. Can you give us a snapshot of where you guys are at today? Like how many people you have, the service area you have, and that sort of thing. Revenue,
yeah.
If you want.
Yeah, when I started, it was just me. I was all by myself. I was selling. I was scheduling, I was building. I was fortunate enough. I had a really good relationship with a roofing crew. I've known them for a long, long time, and they came aboard, and so it was just me and them, man. And we were just banging out roofs. I worked probably 19 hours out of the day, and first year did about 1.6, 1.7 million in revenue. And, I knocked 3 doors. Okay. That was the extent of my door knocking. I knocked 3 doors and then I just kept getting referrals and recommendations and all that stuff. And my marketing started to do well. And, fast forward, I mean, here we are. 2019 is really when I started doing it. And then here we are 3 years later. We'll probably finish, well, our projection before Ian hit was a little over 10. I think we're definitely gonna beat that. I've got 5 in-house crews right now. I've got 2 sub crews, 2 siding crews, 7 sales guys, and 3 admins.
Wow. Okay. So right now, people listening to this are lots of guys who are in your like 2008 shoes, right? They're just starting out, they're doing everything in the business, working 19 hours a day, and they see you, they're like, all right, 10 million, like what's the path? Like what's the path for where I am right now, doing all the things in the business to where you've got this team, you got in-house crews, you're doing 8 figures, like I'm sure that we can, record 10 episodes on that path, but like how did you initially like get out of that doing everything in the business? Like what was your mindset there? Like did you know from day one that you're like, all right, I'm going to do everything that I need to do in the business right now, but like in 6 months I need to hire for this. In 12 months I need to get this off my plate. Like was that an intentional path that you had or what?
Yeah, that was already laid out, right? So, luckily I have, a lot of experience in the business and I worked for some really great companies and I worked for some really, really bad companies. And I knew the sales side of it really, really well. But the last couple of companies I worked with, they kind of taught me and I learned the production side of things, the organization side of things. And they took us to a lot of trainings and I just learned as much as I could when I was working for them. So I knew I was going to start my own business. And so for about 2 years, I just kind of planned, figured everything out, got everything set up, socked money aside, all those different things. And so when I started my business, I didn't have a ton of money, but I had about 20 grand that I had set aside. And, I said, okay, I'm going to start out doing this. My marketing has to be number one. My sales process has to be number one. And then, knocking it out of the park for customer service. And once I start rolling, this is the first person I'm going to hire. And this is the second. And I knew that the first people that I was going to hire were salespeople, right? And so I hired a sales guy. I trained a sales guy. And then I did all the internal stuff. And while I was doing the internal stuff, I was making training videos on how to do those things, right? So that I could bring somebody in and I could say, here is the video library of how to do your job. And we'll start training, and then I brought in an admin and I taught her how to do that, pull permits, schedule jobs, all that stuff. Then I brought in more sales guys. And so, I just kept building and building and building.
All right, that's awesome. I mean, that's what it takes. I think you probably see a lot of the same thing I do in a lot of the roofing Facebook groups and things like that. Like I think a lot of people, and I was guilty of it too, and still am sometimes, like of working so hard and not really picking my head up and figuring out like, all right, where do we want to go? Like, what's the next hire we need to make? How can I make sure that I'm documenting some of the things we're doing so that we can duplicate, I can delegate and elevate.
That's huge.
And I think it's like, in some sense, it's almost like easy to put your head down and work hard because that comes natural to, guys like you and me growing up in the blue collar construction industry. But the harder thing to do is to step back and like kind of figure out where you're going to put those chess pieces and what your next moves are going to be. Right.
Yeah. And, that's a really good point. I think the other thing too, that's really difficult is, when you start making money, it's really hard. I just took a small salary, right? And I just kept dumping everything back into the business. And really what I was dumping money into was my marketing, right? Because look, if you're not getting out there in front of people and you're not building that credibility and you're not building all of that stuff, then you can have the best sales guys in the world, unless you're going out and knocking doors and, that's your business model, which is not, I'm 100% retail, by the way. So I'm kind of an anomaly in Florida. And that wasn't my business model. So I needed to front load the business, right? And I knew that I had an outstanding sales process that I could bring sales guys in and help them sell. And so, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much really what I focused on as a new business. If you're not getting business, you're done, right? And you're not financially responsible, which is the other piece. I just did not take money out of the business ever. I still don't actually.
Yeah, I'm very similar. I think I, in some way underpay myself, but that's everything goes back into the business. It's a vehicle that I know like we can get a good ROI and continue to grow it. And that's up to every individual. But yeah, we definitely see a lot of people in the roofing industry, buying the big trucks and things like that. Maybe a little bit too early because every dollar you take out for yourself that you maybe don't need is a dollar that the business could use. So big
Right.
believer in that. So
Yeah.
another thing that a lot of people watching or listening right now are probably thinking like, all right, you've got those, you got out of your own way, like you got out of the, truck, you're hiring people, you're delegating processes. And then you mentioned marketing and you really focused on that and really got that to work. Obviously it's a big topic in today's world. It's something that we focus on every day here at my company. What over the past few years, like what have you seen work for you?
So my perspective on this is just like a financial planner would tell you, diversify your assets, right? And one of the things that I really, really focused on that I didn't have much control over, I have a very good trusted partner that ran all my digital marketing. I was very fortunate to have a relationship with somebody that I trusted, and he runs all my digital marketing, has knocked it out of the park for me, right? But the other thing that I did was I understood that one day it dawned on me. I was having a conversation with a realtor friend that I know, and she referred a lot of business to me. And we were talking, and she said, she's like, "How come you don't work with more realtors?" And I said, I mean, they're really challenging to work with. And she said, "Really? How so?" And at that moment, I had an aha. Well, like, wait a second. Just like I have to educate homeowners, I need to educate these real estate professionals on what this relationship looks like, right? And so I sat down and I thought about that. How am I going to present myself and how am I going to pitch this from their vantage point? And so I figured it out. I started meeting with these large brokerages, and all of a sudden I started saying, "Hey guys, here's how I can bring value to you. I know what you're struggling with. Here's how I can help." Right. And all I ask is that I'm just your go to. I'm not going to charge you for these things. I'm going to be your easy button. I just hope that we can develop a mutually beneficial relationship. And so when I figured that out, I trained my guys how to do that. And we have a ton of realtors that refer us business, right? Because we knock it out of the park and we help them when they need help, when they need inspection reports, when they need opinions about, failed home inspection, all that stuff. We go to bat for them and they love it, right? So that was one. The other one was I'm on the other side of the insurance. So I went to insurance brokers and I said, "Here's how I can help you and bring you value and help service your customers and help you knock it out of the park for your customers. Here's how I can bring value." Lo and behold, we have some that they're a steady stream of business for us. So I understood how to position myself and bring value to these people and go out and educate them how this is mutually beneficial and why they need to call us before they need us, right? And yeah, it's been extremely successful. So that's the other stream that's been really, really good. So my digital marketing, relationships, and some canvassing, right? So we figured out a really just knock it out of the park canvassing strategy. We have some neighborhoods that we just absolutely own, right? Because we go out and we canvass. My guys wear shirts. We have branded trucks. We have yard signs. We have feather flags. We have tents. And I'm neurotic about that. Like if I go out to a job and there's not all of those things that are set up, they know I'm going to lose my mind. We have this like, "Hey, look at me. Hey, look at me. Hey, look at me." Right. And somebody brought up they said something really funny. They're like, "You're not going to put a mangled up picture of yourself on a dating site, right? Like, why would you put a mangled up picture of yourself out there on your job site when you're asking people to take a look at you and see your company?" Right. So all of those things, man, I mean, I think I've done a really good job at making sure that we've diversified our marketing.
Nice. That's a really good answer. Thank you. And that's so important because I think a lot of people are looking for that, the easy button, but not necessarily in a good way. Like they're looking for the magic or the magic funnel or, whatever it is. And it's like, you're just it doesn't exist, you know?
It doesn't exist. Nope. Consistency, man. Diversity and consistency is the only thing that will pay dividends. I mean, so much so like, my guys, so I have 7 sales guys, and one of the first things that I tell them to do is to every neighborhood group that they can get in, where they live on Facebook, get into that neighborhood group, right? Have your wife get into that neighborhood group, have your mom, have your sister, whoever it is, get into that neighborhood group. And when they see people looking for a roofer or looking for some help with something, have them comment, have them recommend you, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do, and none of it's magic, right? It's just consistency and diversity, period.
Yep. I have my list right here called my dynamic day, and it's a
Yeah,
checklist that I go through every day. It's business development touch points, checking in with clients, strategic partners, personal touch points, the 5 pieces of content I'm putting out there. And like this sits on my desk and just go through it every day. And nothing magic, it's just consistent. So I love
that's
that.
it. Yep.
So door knocking, so canvassing for retail, that's something that's going to perk a lot of people's ears up as well. So that you guys have figured out a good system for that, huh?
A great system. And I can't give you my secret sauce, but we figured out a really good system. And I will tell you, look, I try to stay teachable. Okay. I fail at it miserably most of the time, right? But I try to stay teachable. And I learned, I took some little tidbits from some different guys in the industry, and I was like, okay, that's cool. And then I took another one. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And then I'm like, all right, so how can I put this together in sort of a meaningful system that's really going to help us, right? And so that's where the canvassing, but the piece to the canvassing that I'll tell you is probably the most important, right? I don't subcontract out. Okay, so like all my guys, all my installers, they work for me. They're W-2 employees, right? So I make them wear shirts. Okay, my guys, they drive wrapped trucks. We have yard signs out. We have feather flags out, right? I've seen, and actually I was talking to Elizabeth one time because she asked me a question, right? And she was like, well, I see that you guys really brand your job sites well, right? And she's like, well, how do you do that, right? Because she's like, I see these guys all the time. They're doing great with their marketing, but there's no job site branding. I mean, how can you miss such a fundamental piece of that, strategy, to where it just doesn't even dawn on you that somebody's going to drive by and they have no idea who you are.
Yep.
Right? Or you have a tiny little yard sign that you can't see.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, who cares?
Yeah, it's so simple, and we talk about it all the time. So I'm so glad to have a roofing company owner talking about it too. I think it adds a little bit more weight to it. But yeah, I mean, we see it all the time. I'm a big runner, so I'm always running around different neighborhoods, and you see, sometimes I'm watching a whole house get built because I'm running by it 3 or 4 times a week over the course of like 6 months, or a year.
Yeah.
And then you see a lot of the contractors. You see the ones that have nice branded trucks. You see the ones that have, clearly the subcontractor trucks. Nothing wrong with that, but like, everything's a representation of your brand, and it's such a huge opportunity, especially like you said, when you're in those key neighborhoods. Like, you want everyone to know that. You want everyone seeing that blue and white. Like, that is so key, so simple, and it's something that maybe people don't understand it until you start doing it. But just think about, you see a brand over and over again as a consumer, as a homeowner. Like that just helps to build trust, right? It's just not like, it's not a chuck in a truck. People see South Shore, they know you guys are legit. You've got people, you've got trucks, you got signs, you got flags, everything. Like, it just all goes into like building that trust.
That's it.
And then like when realtors and insurance agents want to refer you guys, well, like they feel good about it because they see that all over the place. They see you guys all over. They see the reviews and everything, and they feel confident that they can refer you to their clients. So that's a huge part of the referral business as well.
It really is, and here's the last piece of this. And I would say that it is fundamentally as important as the front end. Okay. You better damn well fulfill whatever it is that you say you're going to do, right? Because if your fulfillment is not congruent with your pitch and what your guys are selling, then you're going to lose credibility, and it is impossible. Once you lose credibility, it's impossible to get it back.
That's
So,
so true. Yeah.
yeah, one of the things that I take very, very seriously, and my sales team knows this, is that I absolutely will make sure that we on the back end take care of their customers on the front end. So if they have somebody and they say, hey, you know what, South Shore is great, we're going to take care of you, we're going to do this, they're going to fulfill their part of it, and we're going to fulfill our part of it. And we're going to get, I don't know if you've looked through of our reviews, but the reviews that we get are just, I mean, they're outstanding. People write these long, reviews about how exceptional their experience was. And that's what we're going for right there.
Yeah. That's everything, right? I mean, there's other companies in your market that are, putting on the same products with the same warranties and everything like that. But it's that experience that you're giving them, that confidence that you're giving them. Yeah, we have a Slack channel for our team here at Contractor Dynamics, and our sales guys love it when we're sharing client wins. And in a meeting, and we're like, hey, the Ty is doing really well. This guy Bob's doing really well, and they're like, all right, that's awesome, and that gives them the confidence to then go out there and sell more confidently, knowing that there's a team on the back end that's absolutely going to deliver on those promises.
Yeah, if you have a sales staff that's constantly getting calls from pissed off customers, and they're quite, because look, they're the face, right? They're going to take the fall if things go badly, right? Because they're the ones that sold the product, they're the initial interaction, and so I've been on that side where the company I worked for continually dropped the ball, and I was like, man, I just didn't want to answer my phone. And it's just, you just cannot build a business that way. You can't.
No, not at all. You're going to burn through your customers and your market quickly, especially this day with social media and reviews and everything like that. Like it's so important.
And your sales staff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your sales staff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you're thanks for sharing all that, by the way. Like that's some really good nuggets. Do you have digging into it, do you have like a process for developing processes, not to sound like overly, bureaucratic, but like, is there a way that do you keep your processes in like a Google Doc, or use like a platform like Trainual or something like that? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah. So we create, we use Google Drive, right? And so we create, so each department has their own folder with, all the resources that they need to do their job. So we have sort of the role and responsibilities, which is the framework to develop all the SOPs on. So we take the role and responsibility, and then each of those responsibilities, we have an SOP on those. And so that we can sort of systematically train people on how to do it. Now, to go back to answer your question, do we have an overreaching guiding document on how we develop processes? It's funny you asked that, because I went to a GAF conference not too long ago, and one of the classes that I went to, the guy said, if you don't have a written mission statement, set of core values, and company vision, you really need to do it. So he asked if we had those things written, and he said, if you don't, he basically said, you're not a real company, without saying you're not a real company, right? And so, right. I emailed him, and he said, I challenge you to sit down and do this, because I promise you it will transform the way you view your business. I'm like, okay, fine, right? So I sat down and I started to write out those things, and it was extremely challenging. And I actually spent a week doing it, because I started writing things out, and I was like, that sucks. And I started to refine it. And then I reached out to some people in the industry to get some input. And so finally I landed on what we have now, which is, our mission, our values, and then our vision. I'm sorry. And so after doing that, then I went back and I said, okay, is our training and do our standard procedures and do our roles and responsibilities reflect those? And so I went back and I revised all that stuff to make sure that everything was a reflection of those key points, right? So to answer your question, I did not have that. I was just doing it strictly from a need and an operational standpoint. But then when I was challenged to do that, and I got a lot more clarity on, really what I wanted and really what my company was about, then I really had sort of a global perspective and was able to go back and revise everything.
All right, I love that. That makes 100% sense. We actually did that this year. Really got really serious about it. This is our ninth year in business, and like I always thought those things like the mission, the core values were like, all right, we'll get to a huge company, we'll put them in our conference room, and like that's what you do when you get to a certain level.
Yeah, right.
But I did them this, that's for like guys in suits, right? Not guys in t-shirts. But we did them earlier this year in January, and it's been a game changer. It's like every decision we make, every person we hire, like every events that we go to, like we're always like making sure that everything's in alignment with our core values. And it's like a board of directors that you consult that that you don't have to pay. That it's just like, okay, let's go see, like, run this SOP or this decision by our values. Does it align? Yes, great. And it's huge.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people are in that boat. Like, you're small, like get into that. Whether it's like, we follow EOS based on traction, that model. There's other books and resources. You can Google like how to create core values. Just do something, There we go. I knew we were speaking the same language there. I knew it. So how long have you guys been following that?
I actually, Tim Brown encouraged me to read it, and so I'm 3/4 of the way through it, and I mean, look, it's easy for me to have all this stuff floating around in my head, right?
Yep.
And just like my values and my vision and all that, it was actually very difficult to articulate what it was that I was actually wanting to do. And so having to sit down and really think about it and make sure that I clearly laid everything out so that I can go to my team and say, hey, this is the roadmap right here, right? And this is what we do. This is how we do it. And this is who we are. And this is what the company is all about. You're right. I mean, just a game changer.
Yeah, that's cool. Traction is, I don't know, say it's a tough read. I think a lot of people read it and they put it down like, oh, it sounds like a lot of work. I don't have time for that. Like, I did that years ago. Rocket Fuel is one of the other now seven traction or 7 EOS books. Rocket Fuel is one I encourage you to read. It's more of when I read that after having read Traction, that was what opened my eyes. I'm like, oh wow, this is how the business could be. Like, that was kind of my why to go all in on it. So yeah, Rocket Fuel, I would encourage. Yeah, everyone says read Traction. I think that might be a little bit daunting to a lot of people because it is like there's a lot of things going on there. But Rocket Fuel is more like it paints a picture of like what that business could look like when you implement everything. So, especially from like the owner's perspective, from the visionary's perspective. So.
Yeah, I think the cool thing about Traction is what's been neat for me is a lot of the stuff I already have in place, but it just needs to be fine-tuned and dialed in with like a clear system. And what I really like about Traction is how it shows you how each thing is interconnected and how how you develop each side and why each is important, right? And so it just, again, it's like giving a little bit more clarity to some things that we already had in place, and then some things that we need to put in place that aren't there yet.
Yeah, for sure. And one step at a time. I think like when I first read Traction, I think it was 2018 maybe. I thought I had the book on my desk. I don't. But I was daunted because like I thought we had to be perfect with everything. And you're not.
Yeah.
Like, even in the book, it says like it's going to take you a while to like figure this stuff out. And we had our quarterly meeting last Friday for Q4, and we're going through some things. We're like, all right, well, we didn't accomplish all of our rocks in Q3, and we just had some grace with ourselves. We're like, all right, well, maybe we took on too much for the size of our team right now. We probably did. Let's try to be, ambitious, but like also realistic, because we want December 31st. We want to be able to check off all those rocks and priorities and like really feel good about that. So it's a work in progress. So just, dive in. You're not going to be perfect, but what is it? You don't have to be perfect to start, but you have to start to be perfect or good or great, whatever it is.
Yeah, let's actually, go back a little bit and talk about how we got there to where I was open-minded enough to actually seek some counsel and look at, some things like Traction and listen to some of these consultants and really become open-minded enough to start looking at some of this stuff. Things were going really, really well. That my first year and second year, things were great because we were growing. We were increased. So, year two, we did close to we did like 4.7, 4.8 million, right? So going from 1.8 to, to 4.8 or, 4.7, huge growth. The process that had in place worked good. They did not scale from that revenue to what we're doing now. Like it was a shit show as soon as June hit, right? Because that's our busy season in Florida. Summer hits. I mean, the phone just starts ringing off the hook. It starts raining. I mean, it's nuts, right? And so I quickly realized I had hired some people. I had hired more sales staff because I knew I was going to get busy. I hired, a couple more people in the office. They were new, and the processes that I had trained them on failed miserably. I mean, we were, July, late July, we were all like licking our wounds because we're like, I don't know if we're going to make it through the summer. I mean, it was just problem after problem, putting out fires, and it sucked, man. Luckily, I have a great team that, anytime something happened, we were on it. We took care of our customers, so we didn't really fail in that regard, but operationally, it was a dumpster fire. You know what I mean? So what I had to do, and this is another, I think, key piece of advice I'll give any owner, okay? Nothing is anybody else's fault other than yours. Nothing. It is 100% wholly and solely on you to figure out what's going on. You can't blame your sales manager. You can't blame your admins. You can't blame, it's your responsibility to figure out your problems. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is you have to emotionally detach from your ideas, because if you're in love with your ideas and you continue to go down the same road that got you where you are, if nothing changes, nothing changes, right? So, I had to step back and say, okay, what are the problems? Okay. And so I actually, I'm in recovery, I don't hide from that. I've been sober for 13 years. I'm in recovery. One really great thing, well, a lot of great things happen in recovery, but one of the really great things about recovery is personal responsibility, and you get used to writing out stuff, right? And so I sat down, I wrote out what the problems were, and just started mapping out possible solutions and what we could do. And then I did what everybody should do. I sat down with my team and said, hey guys, what are the problems from your perspective? Right. And so I let them tell me what they thought was going on, and so that we could come up with solutions that were meaningful to them. And look, I'm going to miss stuff because I'm not dealing with that certain whatever it is every day. Right. And so I said, okay, I got their perspective. I understood. And I just sat down and I mapped out what we needed to do to change. And I changed some of our processes. I took some responsibilities from some departments. I created a new department. And so I shuffled around everything, created some procedures and some processes for that, and restructured, and it worked out really well.
That's awesome. I love that. You are responsible and then emotionally detached from your ideas and get feedback from your team. And you can't get that feedback from your team, honestly, until, in my opinion, you have that like common vision and core values, and letting people know that like, hey, this is all about the business. It's all about the mission. It's not about me. It's not about you. Like, put egos aside. Like, we want to figure out this problem so that we can, achieve our goals and live up to our mission.
They have to trust you.
Yeah. Right.
They really have to trust that what you're trying to do is really in the best interest of everyone.
Yeah, exactly. We have a meeting every Friday, small team meeting, just to kind of go over, and we started this, I guess, earlier this year, just to kind of go over the week. It's a real quick meeting. Like, hey, where did you feel like you didn't have enough time to do your job properly this week? Like, where did you feel overwhelmed? Like, what things are broken? And I like that as an owner. So like, not that I can sit there and, problem solve all weekend, but like I can have those ideas in my head. Maybe we can figure out some processes that we can implement like the following week. Right. So we're not waiting till January 1st to say, all right, what do we need to fix? Or waiting till a new quarter. It's like every week we're kind of fixing things that are broken. Because if we have team members that are, overextended, overwhelmed, stressed out, working too long every day, like they're not going to be productive. They're not going to be serving our clients well. So that's huge. And then yesterday, actually, one of our editors, so I recorded the 100th episode of our podcast, and I just did it. I didn't.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah, thanks. I didn't give him enough time. I was like, hey, you have enough time to get this out on Monday? I think it was like last Wednesday. Ended up being an hour. I thought it was gonna be like 20 minutes, but I was sitting here, I was, on a roll. I kept going, and I was like, hey, can you get this by Monday? Because that's like our launch date, or our publishing date. And he sent it to me yesterday, but he sent me a 7-minute video of himself. He's like, hey, I just want to share this with you. Like, I was a little under the gun with this one, like didn't have enough time to do it the way that I think that it should be done, to differentiate our content, to honor like the 100th episode and things like that. So like he had, he felt comfortable that he could like push back on me being like, hey, you're trying to rush this thing. I think it should be done this way because, that's going to be a higher quality way to do it. It's going to be better content. And that's cool. Like he felt safe as an employee to do that. And that was like, I appreciate that. Right. Cause I don't necessarily see that. And I wrote him back. I'm like, hey, thanks. Like, I appreciate you called me out. I was trying to half-ass it and you called me out on it. And, that's going to result in better content. So
Yeah, that's immensely valuable.
Yeah. Like I'm so grateful for that, so that's huge.
Yeah, part of our, and I think, part of me sitting down and writing out the core values and all that, one of my core values is, to have super well-trained staff that feel comfortable and confident in what they do and know that they can take autonomy over their position, right? So that's one of the core values. The other core value is that we are allowed to have a work-life balance. We won't put ourselves in a situation where we get burned out to where we're not going to serve anybody at all, right? So that's the other core value. And, I always tell my team, we have a democratic dictatorship, right? So I'll listen, I'll take an advisement, we'll talk about everything. But at the end of the day, we're going to do what I feel is right and what I direct us to do. Because I think the worst thing that a leader can do is become too dependent on how everybody feels, right? Because look, there's a bunch of different personalities in the company, okay? And I'll tell you, I'm probably one of the biggest personalities in the company. People know when I get fired up, just let me go, because this, just let me go, and then I'll come back, and everybody's like, all right, because I'm very passionate. But I won't allow what I won't allow is I won't allow somebody's attitude to negatively impact everybody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I really value my team. I really care about everybody that works for me. But you have to keep a close eye, because I've had to let some people go because I've realized that it's the same person with the same problems with the same attitude over and over and over. Our other core value, one of our other core values, is we have to stay solution minded. Because if we don't stay solution minded and we get stuck on the problem, that doesn't serve anyone. We look at the problem, we acknowledge the problem, we understand the problem, and then we figure out how we solve it, right? You have to. So I think as a leader and as the owner of the company, you have to take all that information and you have to decide what's going to be the best course of action. You have to.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to steer the ship in a certain way. And look, we've gone the wrong way and we've had to back up, right? But I'm going to push the company forward in the best direction that I feel based on everybody's feedback.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's another key element.
Yeah. I don't know if you follow Andy Frisella. You follow him at all?
No, I don't know who that
is. He talked about it recently in one of his podcasts that he does the same thing, right? Sit around the conference table, like get feedback from the team, ask them what they think, ask them how they think we should solve this problem or this issue or overcome this challenge. Take those things into consideration. But at the end of the day, as a leader, you have that final say, like, all right, this is the direction we're going in. And thank you for your feedback. Like we use that, some ideas may not be appropriate right now, whatever, but like that's leadership. And I think if you operate that way, which I try to do as well, that builds a lot of trust. and you're not just making decisions and like telling the team like, hey, this is what I decided over the weekend, like coming on Monday, like here's what we're doing, guys. Like they're not going to take any pride in that because they didn't have any input in that. So I
Right.
like that. I think that's a
Right.
really good way to lead.
Yeah, and the one of the other things that this a friend of mine he had challenged me to do. He said he's like, "Do you have a role and responsibilities as the owner?" And I was like, "No. Why would I need that?" And he's like, "You need to sit down and write out your role, right? Because I know this is probably hard for you to imagine, but one of the toughest things for us to do is to let people do their job and just back off, right?" And so
Yeah.
I had to write out like my role and my responsibilities so that I knew that I wasn't going to overstep and I could just let people do their job. But the other thing is like I needed to be able to detach a little bit and manage from a high level, because when you have all these crews working and you have your marketing and you have your finance side of it and you have material orders and you have all of this stuff and you have admins and phone call, you've got to be able to look at everything from a high level and kind of see what's going on, get your departments to report to you, and then make decisions based on all of that information. And if you're constantly doing things like running out to a job site, you're never going to be able to push the company forward if you keep working with those blinders on.
Yeah. And again, like I think that's the easy thing to do. It's like, okay, there's a problem on this job or there's a problem customer or whatever. I'm just going to jump on that and fix it because I know how. But
Right.
that's number one, like, that's not your role as the owner. Number two, you're going to undermine that employee or that person on your team that should be solving
Yeah.
that problem. And you're holding them back, right? You're holding them back from advancing in their career and learning and improving and growing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's huge.
Yeah, when I hired my sales manager, and by the way, I know a lot of guys that hire sales managers and they expect the sales manager to come in and fix their sales team. It's not going to work that way. If you don't really have a clear understanding on what you want your sales team to do, how you want them to do it, and what the end result is, that sales manager is probably not going to meet your expectations. So that's number one. But number two is I said, look, here's your role and responsibility. Here's what I want you to do. Okay. We have a sales process. I want you to do your job, this way. I'm going to allow you to make mistakes. And when you hire salespeople, just know we are going to lose money on them. It's just the way it is. Don't freak out. That's part of the investment into the sales team, right? They're going to undersell jobs. They're going to do something stupid. They're going to make a mistake, whatever it is, right? And so being able to clearly set those expectations and let people know, like, look, I already know the problems that we're going to have here. Don't worry about it. Don't hide from it. Let's know that they're going to exist and let's work through them and train that out of them. Right. That is
That's
huge.
Yeah. Is that something like, one of the things I wanted to talk about is like things that you see a lot of maybe younger, roofing company owners doing, not younger, but like, guys and girls just starting out, maybe expecting to get an ROI from a person like right away and like not investing into them.
Mm.
Would that be fair?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, but I call those companies pimps, right? Get out on the street and bring me back my money. I mean,
Yeah.
really, they're investing nothing and they're expecting everything, right? And then they're mad when that doesn't come to fruition. It's like, wait a minute,
And
you
then it's
know?
like, oh, I can't find good people. Like my people are always leaving me. I have an attrition problem, like the backdoor
Yes.
problem, right?
Yep. Yeah. Again, I forget who it was. Richard Branson, and I don't know if this is really a comment or something that he said, but it said, train people well enough that they can leave, treat them well enough that they don't want to, right?
Ooh, I like
And
that.
that is really something that I don't, I was talking to Mike Stearns about this. I was all bent out of shape one day because my first salesperson that I had to fire, I'm like, man, he's got all my sales documents and he's got like all my processes and everything. And he was like, so what? He's like, that information's out there. And I was like, yeah, you know what, man, you're right. It's like the secret sauce is execution, right? I mean, it just is. So if information is only as good as your ability to teach people how to use it, right? Like
Yep.
the aha moment that I had when I was talking to that realtor, and she was like, "Well, why don't you like working with realtors?" And I had to like think about it, and I was like, "Because they suck." And I was like, "Wait a minute, they don't suck." Right?
Yeah.
What sucks is my interaction with them, right? And you know, just when you have those kind of fundamental like aha moments, you're like, oh, wait a minute. Everything starts and stops with me. Everything.
Yep.
And so, if my salesperson's not performing correctly, we've got to train them. We've got to try to diagnose where it is and what's going on. And sometimes, man, they're not going to cut it, right? But you train them and you track them, right? And you track them. You talk to them about where they're not making their mark. Where they're not hitting their benchmarks, and then you try to train that up. And sometimes you just can't, right? And you made a
Hmm.
bad hire. It happens. But you as an owner, if you don't have those things in place, how can you hold somebody accountable for their performance?
Yep. Accountability is huge. The ability to measure whatever you can as much as you can so that you can continue to help them improve and grow and train. Like that's huge. We hire a new team member. We have a 30, 60, 90. So like here are your expectations within the first 30 days. Here are your expectations within 60 and then 90. And then we'll have a, conversation after that moving forward. But like we have those things mapped out like during the hiring process. And then when they're hired, it's like, here's what we're working on this month. There's some aspect of a to-do list. Here's what you're going to be learning. Here's what we're going to expect from you. And then so that becomes like, the measuring stick, how we can measure their performance. And that's up
Yeah,
front.
people do
Everyone,
well. Yeah, people do well when they know what's expected of them. When you
yeah,
when you set them up to succeed, yeah, yep,
right. You don't want to fire someone like, it's just not working out. Like, oh, well, why? Can you give me some feedback? It's just not working out. Like that's, that indicates a lot of problems
right.
on both ends.
Yeah, you're not fulfilling the expectations I had that I never gave you, that I never set forth that you needed to fulfill. But so it's just not working, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's nuts.
Yeah, man, you shared some really good. I really appreciate this. Like, it's been really good chatting. I know there's so many things. I know we went over a lot of them. Like, I'm just trying to extract like a couple like final like parting words, comments, recommendations for like younger roofing company owners, contracting company owners that like really want to get out of their own way. Like they're working hard and they just kind of want to break through that next level. Like anything there that you can kind of sum up.
Yeah, so I'm going to share a little bit of my personal experience, right? So, about 2 years ago, so I've been in the industry for a long time, and I was getting really bent out of shape about some of the stuff that was happening in the industry, especially on social media. A lot of guys that really don't know what they're doing, going out and teaching and training, and new company owners, making stupid mistakes, all this, and is just really bothered by that, right? And a friend of mine met Dave Carroll at one of the events, and my name came up. And Dave, he and I don't know each other. And he made a comment. He said, "Yeah, man, that dude seems pretty angry, right?" And my friend told me about the comment, and I sent a message to Dave. I said, "You know what, man? I really, really appreciate you saying that." I was like, you're right, and I need to check myself, man. And so I, instead of being angry, I've taken a position of like, hey, how can I help these guys? How can I share with them some of the mistakes that I've made? How can I be a resource and like serve these guys so that they can do well in their business, right? So that's number one, man. Just try not to pay attention to what other people are doing so much. You know, be helpful, be genuine, be of service, and then, just pay attention to what you're doing and stay teachable. Because if you don't stay teachable, man, it's game over. It really is. And so I got into a negative feedback loop where I was just, my ego got a hold of me. I wasn't teachable. I wasn't, trying to help. And I was paying the price for it. And so I think the best thing that I can say is stay teachable, align yourself with the right people that are willing to just share with you what's worked for them, And there's no substitute for experience, man. You're just going to have to go through some stuff.
Love it. That's so valuable. You've got so many years, decades of experience, and that's huge. We're gonna clip that and put that out as a little clip there because that's just that's a great nugget right there. So I appreciate it, Corey. Do you have time for a couple minutes for a quick lightning round? Have some fun Q&A.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, cool. So lightning round. We'll do 5 quick questions. So number one, you have the book Traction there. What is a book that you're currently reading?
So currently, I am reading the 21 Laws, Irrefutable Laws of Leadership.
Awesome.
And then, as part of becoming a better business owner, I am reading Profit First.
Awesome. I've read, you know what, Profit First. I have not implemented it. So that's a big part of business, big part of reading books. We got to actually implement the things that are in there. I get it.
Right?
Like I read the book,
Yeah.
I'm nodding my head like that makes so much sense. Now I got to go implement it. So good
Remember,
reminder.
the secret sauce is execution, brother.
There you go, right? All the info is out there. We're the same way. Like I give away 98% of the stuff that we do. And it's just like, if people want help, then they can come get our help. If they want to implement it themselves, go ahead. Like that's awesome. I'm a big fan of having a solid morning routine. Do you have one? And if so, what is it?
Yeah, well, so we call it spiritual disciplines, right? So prayer, a little meditation, and some reading. So that's typically my normal routine when I'm actually doing my normal routine. But lately, it's been, get up, drink coffee, and get to work.
Sometimes that's necessary. Yeah. My morning routine's very similar. Meditation, prayer, reading, a couple other things. So setting the day up with intention is key. I know you just got back from Nashville, I believe. What is your next travel destination?
I think my next travel destination is probably going to be somewhere tropical, Costa Rica, Bora Bora, something like that.
Nice. I like it. Okay.
Yeah.
Love Costa Rica. I got engaged in Costa Rica, actually. It's a special place for us. What are you doing on a free Saturday? You mentioned work-life balance. What are you doing on a free Saturday, Corey?
I'm out on the boat, man.
Oh yeah, yeah. I love seeing your pics of the boat.
Yeah. I mean, whether we're fishing or just out cruising, man, I mean, no, I wish somebody would have told me having a boat was so much fun years ago, man.
Awesome. That's it's on my list as well for the next couple years. All right, and then final question: what's next? What's next for the company and for you?
I've really been doing a lot of learning on commercial service. And so I've been doing some training and some studying and some writing and developing that side of the business. So commercial service is going to be next. Man, I don't know how much more I want to grow, be honest with you. I'm tentatively getting into that, right? I'm slowly developing it. I'm learning it. I understand. I mean, we do some commercial stuff anyway, right? But I want to know all the ins and outs of it and do as much as I possibly can up front so that I really shorten the mistakes you're going to pay tuition either way, right?
Yeah.
I always say that. I mean, the tuition is the mistakes. And so I really want to limit the amount of tuition I pay on this.
All right, I like that. And I like what you said about like I don't know how much more I want to grow. That's like completely fine. Like in this industry where it's like we got to scale like $100 million, we got to 10x. Like it's
Why?
you got to figure out what you want.
Why?
Yeah, exactly.
If your net profit is good, I mean, if you're doing 10 million and your net profit is good, I mean, how much money do you really need to make?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've had enough money the last couple of years to do some investing, right? So as part of my goals, I have an investment goal every year personally, right? I blew it out of the water this year. Like I blew it out of the water. So I would really challenge people to sit back and really think about what you want, and really what you want for your life. Because if you don't really know, you can fall victim to that, and you can say, "Oh, I just want to have a bigger company, I want to grow, I want to grow, I want to grow." Why, man? Why? Have an 8, 9, 6, 7, 8, 9, $10 million company. Make sure your net profit number is really solid, and like take care of your people and enjoy your life, man.
Yeah, I know a lot of folks in that range that are like that's where they want to be. That's, they have that balance, they have that control, they have the profitability. And I've been guilty of that too. Like, oh, I need to grow, I need to grow. And then like if you're not sure why, or it's not tied to a why, then you're just going to stress yourself out because you're like always feeling like you're falling short. You're comparing yourself to others on social media. It's you get into a negative like spiral way of thinking like really quickly.
Let me tell you about this social media comparison, okay? I've met a lot of these guys. Everybody, listen, you're not missing anything, okay? I promise. A lot of it's bullshit, okay?
Yeah, it is. And like you just gotta, you gotta, it's your life. You gotta figure out what you want, not what anyone else wants. And it's so easy in social media to compare ourselves. So like it's so easy. It happens to me all the time. Or, I don't want
Yeah,
to say it happens to me because I want to take ownership of it. I feel that way more often than I want, but I'm working on it. So but getting
yeah,
clear on your vision, your mission, your core values is going to help you like stay in your lane and just, tune out that outside noise. Cause it's like, oh, that's great for them. But like, I've got my thing I'm working on. I'm going to focus
yeah.
on that. So
Yeah, do it for your business and do it for yourself personally, man.
yeah.
You know? And listen, I was working jobs where I was making nothing, scraping by, right? So, you're making a couple $100,000 a year. That's a great life, guys. You know,
Yeah.
it really is.
Yeah. And then you're supporting and impacting dozens of other families. Like that's huge. Like
Yep.
that's awesome. Like that's a great
Yep.
impact.
Sustainability and stability, man. Focus on that.
All right. Wise words, Corey. Man, I'm so glad that you came on. Thanks for making the time. Corey Combs from South Shore Roofing and Exteriors. Man, it's been really good to chat and get to know you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, same, man. I appreciate you having me on. Thanks.
All right, we'll talk soon.
All right, buddy.